Good evening, everybody, and welcome to workshop number 6. It's hard to believe how quickly these have gone by. Workshop number 6 being presented to you by Toastmasters Leadership Institute. Today's workshop is titled How to Write a Speech in 10 Minutes. And it is being presented by none other than Michael Hoynaski. And today, before I introduce our speaker, I would like to introduce myself. I am your host for tonight, and joining me is Carrie Lynn Morgan, who is our tech guru and will be monitoring our any questions that you put in chat for Michael. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the contributions of several people and several groups. I'd like to acknowledge Michael Prabhu, the district's PR team, the district's web team, and the district's tech team for all the work they've done to make this workshop possible. Now to a few words about our speaker. Michael loves helping people discover their greater potential. In his presentations and workshops, people learn skills and confidence that they need to solve their most pressing issues while gaining clarity to develop extraordinary leadership. People find Michael's workshops and his unique approach to human dynamics inspiring and empowering. And we hope that you will be empowered today at the end of this workshop. The universal skills that Michael presents and focuses on in his coaching are the key principles on developing emotional intelligence, authentic communication, empathy, and creative thinking. Michael's specialties include creating dynamic teams, turning conflict into collaboration, developing authentic communication. And if you know Michael, he teaches you how to be calm and positive in stressful situations. Please note that this workshop is being recorded and that Michael has graciously agreed to stay behind after the workshop is over to answer any and all questions that you might have. Please help me in welcoming Michael to give his presentation. Take it away, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to see everyone here. We have an international audience, which is quite flattering because it's important to be able to connect with everyone. Everyone has the same qualities, the same understanding, and we're looking for how to write a speech in 10 minutes. Now, what I'm doing right now, what I'm doing right now is, let's go to I'm going to screen share with you. And if this all works well. Okay, can everyone see my slides? Yeah, see the slides fine. Writing a speech in 10 minutes. Sometimes we just don't have the time to prepare a speech. We only have a few minutes. Someone turns to you in a meeting, gee, I'm going to be leaving this meeting. Could you speak for me? Well, if it's in a business situation, that's probably easier because you're asked to give an update on a project. You're asked to just give an informal talk about what's happening with the project or where it's going. So that's easy. If you're preparing a speech in only 10 minutes for Toastmasters because a speaker didn't show up, then you have a little bit of a challenge. You want to make sure it fits what you need to do. So you might be giving a speech on connecting with an audience. You might be speaking about how to communicate to an international group or dynamic group. There are several several topics to choose from in Pathways where this works very well. So how to write a speech in 10 minutes. Begins with asking yourself the right questions. What are the questions you need to ask yourself to prepare a speech in a short amount of time? Trusting your instincts. You only have a few minutes, so it's important to trust. Trust what you feel is the right thing to say and how to say it. Also, developing your ideas. So, what are the right questions to ask? We only have a few minutes to think about this. What are the right questions to ask? When we think about it, in Toastmasters, we think it's important to know the audience. So, what's important to your audience? What do they want? What do they need? What would they need to hear and understand? So understanding the needs of the audience is vital because they're the ones that will be receiving the gift of your presentation. Also understanding the personalities in the audience. Some people like very direct information. Some care to be indirect. Some want more facts and figures. Some want to know just the general idea of what's happening within the presentation. So understanding what's going on for the audience. Also balance that with what's important to you. What do you know about? What have you been thinking about that's important? Because if you've been focused on a certain topic, already given it a lot of thought. So because you've already given it thought, it's easy for you to go ahead and communicate your message to the audience. What's the best way to communicate your message? That's the third key. Could it be through storytelling? Even in a technical presentation, sometimes storytelling is the best method to cover some of the information. We can get lost in charts and graphs and details, but it's important to bring the audience back to why are we doing this? Why are we developing these products? How are we impacting people's lives? So what's important to the audience? What's important to you? What's the best way to communicate your message? Where to begin? What is the heart of your message? Now we're going to have 3 periods of writing for you to explore developing a speech. We'll have one period where I would like you to just write freely and continually. Whatever thought crosses your mind, it's okay to write about because that's on your mind. If you think the thoughts are not associated, you'll be able to choose the thoughts that are and create a speech from that. So understand the heart of your message. That's where you begin. Discover your purpose, the purpose behind your message, your core message. Your purpose is to give a speech to entertain or inform the audience or give them additional information. So you're going to engage them, inform them, understand your purpose. Maybe it's a persuasive speech. You want to persuade them to a different way of thinking or to consider different points. So if you understand your purpose in the beginning, that's my purpose, to help the audience understand a certain point, makes it very easy. What's your story? There's always a story in every great presentation, especially a short presentation, or if you have a limited amount of time to develop your presentation. Stories are also easy to develop, they're easy to remember, and they engage the audience on several levels. Now, if you look at the picture here, you could develop many stories imaginatively of what's happening. You could think about, wow, someone had an idea, they sold the idea, maybe they lived in the country, maybe they moved to the city, profits were up, they bought a car, who knows? You could go the other way. You could say, oh, near the center, they fell in love with their idea, it helped them, they bought a new house, or they moved to a smaller house. What's your story? Now, what's in the story you're going to tell is one thing, but what's in your personal life story that you can draw upon? Because the events of our life, when we share them, if it's appropriate with the audience, gives real heart and meaning and substance to what you're saying. If I told a story about a conflict that was overcome, but it was somebody else's story, it wouldn't carry the same meaning or weight or significance as if I told the story about me, the time I overcame a problem and how this helped me. So we think about what's in our story and then the story that's appropriate for the audience. What's your message? After we go through the writing process, or as you write, I'm going to ask you to write for about 3 minutes in a short while here, and you'll find a theme. So if you find the theme that you have, you'll understand your core message, and then you can build your other successive ideas from there. Your core message from what you have written, and you'll find it. Some things will support others, others will not. If it's not supported, go on to the next idea, but let the ideas flow. Whatever you enjoy speaking about, whatever your passion is, you'll find a lot of creativity, passion, and clarity. So we have strong ideas of how to help others or how others have helped us. There brings great clarity to that. So it's easy for us to explain in a few amount of words. Creativity, passion, and clarity. So that's what we're going to work on. Now I have a few other things to share, and that is about trusting your instincts. So many times when we write, we think, well, I'd love to say that. Well, I don't know if the audience wants to hear it. I'd love to tell the story about what happened, but I'm not sure if it fits in. Your initial instinct, your initial idea about what to say is wonderful and should be trusted. And then all you need to do is decide what is the best way to deliver what you're saying to the audience. So again, understand what you want to say, the needs of the audience, trusting your instincts, very important. You can also think about what's unique about you. Sometimes people say, I don't know what to write about. I'm just the same as everyone else. Well, no, we're not the same as everyone else. We're very similar, but we have views that can help other people. And if we draw upon what's unique, then that can help the audience, definitely can help them. My wife and I go hiking often, and both of us have strong backgrounds in photography. So we're always looking around and thinking about the composition, the lighting, taking beautiful pictures. My wife also does the same thing, but as she walks through nature, she doesn't see herself as walking through nature. She sees herself as part of nature. That's a very different understanding and is very unique. Sometimes I ask her, Maureen, you should share that story. And she goes, well, doesn't everybody think that way? I say, no, not many people think that way. That's very unique to you, and it's very special and endearing about who she is and her personality. Think about what's unique about you, your life experience, challenges you've overcome, your perspective. What's unique? What would you like to say? Everyone has a different way of explaining the same subject. If we were speaking about communication, you could have 4 or 5 different ways of explaining the best way to communicate. Everyone is unique, but understanding what you would like to say in your special way is vital. It's important to honor yourself. You're not trying to be someone else. You're being who you are, and you come across as being very authentic, and the audience loves it because they build up a great connection of trust with you and with what's being said, with your message. They're also more likely to want to engage you in further exploration of what you're speaking about. What do you know to be true? At the end of the Oprah magazine, I think she had a column, What I Know to Be True. So she would write her small few paragraphs, one-page article on what she knew to be true. And that comes from deep reflection. What does it mean to enjoy a cup of tea? Some people say, Michael, don't drink your tea so fast. Oh, it was cooling down, I forgot about it. No, just the art of understanding how to enjoy a cup of tea can be very vital to how you reflect upon yourself, how you see life. I once interviewed a tea master from Japan, and he's very famous worldwide. And he saw me kneeling and sitting in the formal Japanese style of seiza. And he looked at me and he looked at my wife. We had trained for many years in the Japanese art of Aikido. And after the interview, he looked at us and he said, it would be very easy for you to understand other arts because of what you understand from Aikido. The understanding of presence, of awareness, of honoring yourself and such. So what you know to be true comes through in the style of speech you give. It comes through anyway, but sometimes or often we don't have the courage to deliver it in that manner. So what do you know to be true? Very important. Before we start writing, it's important to clear your mind, calm your mind. One master from India, he said, 1 hour of meditation is good for everyone. That's enough. Except when you're busy. When your day is very busy, 2 hours of meditation is what you should do. I thought that was remarkable, that you need the extra time to quiet your mind so that you can perceive what you need to say, or that you can express your truth artfully. Letting your ideas fly. This first writing exercise is about letting your ideas be free. Again, there's no need to limit what you're saying. You need not write everything out word for word like a whole speech. You wouldn't have time for that. But you can think about what you would like to say, what your message might be, and the ideas that would support it. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but I like to teach in layers. So the first writing exercise is simply about writing. So just write. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to write. Be clear and simple. Very clear and simple language is important. I just read an article about Ernest Hemingway, and he had a descriptive paragraph with something like 212 words. Most all of them were single syllable words, a few multiple syllable words, and only 2 or 3 that were 3 syllables. So be clear and simple. Great stories start with once upon a time, and then what happened. You describe what happened. It's important to trust your intuition. Developing your intuition is vital in developing and delivering a speech in 10 minutes. So now let's have about, Rovina, can you give us about 3 minutes on a timer? So let's go ahead and have 3 minutes to just write nonstop and express yourself freely.
Michael, we're at 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions from anyone so far? If you have a question, just go ahead and ask it. Otherwise, we'll continue.
Harry asked, I muted everybody. So Harry asked, what kind of meditation do you recommend to clear your mind?
The one that works best. Well, for me, I practice Kriya Yoga or Raja Yoga, and it has to do with clearing the energy centers. And for me, that's very important. Also, for people who are not prone to meditation or stilling and quieting the body, getting the hands busy, gardening, painting. It also can be a type of meditation because your mind is in a different place. Calming your mind, if you love gardening, is very important, or enjoying a cup of tea, or simply sitting still and observing nature. Sitting in nature can be tremendously helpful health-wise, and learning to perceive, sitting quietly in a quiet place, what do you hear? What can you hear? And just allow your thoughts to naturally settle as opposed to forcing them or trying to make them settle. I know that's a long answer. Well, let's go back to the screen share. And we had a few minutes to write. Now, if we consider what we wrote and we look at it, there's a theme. So there are ideas that came through. Some of them related to one another, some didn't. But think about a main point. Is there a main point that flows throughout your story or for what you've written so far? The other thing is, what would you like people to remember? Now, we're not interested in jumping to the conclusion, but it's important to know where the train is going before it leaves the station. You want to know what the destination is at the end. What emotions would you like people to feel? What would you like them to think or understand? What would you like them to remember? Because if you have an idea of what they want to remember, then your ideas will lead up to that, whether it's persuasive or informational. What would you like them to remember? Developing your ideas. You might have written maybe just one sentence or a sentence and a half, and you think there's something about that point that can be developed. Now, in writing a speech in 10 minutes, you might not have time for that, but you might think, oh, the story of how a person influenced my life, I think that's the key to my message. Then I would ask myself, what other people have influenced my life? Oh, there's a few more. I could build on those stories and then tie them together. So developing your idea. Also, the development of what's happening in your surroundings. So let's, the second writing exercise, look for a theme, be honest and simple. Simplicity is important. But while you're looking at this, we're not going to start writing now. I have a few other ideas to share with you. When you look at what you wrote, think about what one idea speaks to you. If you find a point where you're lost, I have a great idea, I like that idea, but I don't know what to say next. In that case, be imaginative, make something up. Some of the most important stories I've told that help people reduce stress or gain insights into leadership are half of what happened to me, half of what happened to a friend, and then I combine them into one story. Also, I think about how one story may have happened to me, and then the second event happened maybe 5 or 10 years later. But they both can be woven together to make one point in a story, to develop the theme. It makes the point, it's very clear, it's very honest. And to be simple, simple in your language. If you stood up, say, I stood up and I bumped my head. Okay, that's very clear. And you know what's happening. But throughout a story, think about what's happening. A friend named Celia once got on an airplane at San Francisco International, and she was going to go to London and land at Heathrow Airport. She left here, she landed at JFK Airport in New York City, and her flight never left. The fog was so thick at Heathrow Airport in London, they canceled the flight. It was in the middle of the night, so it was too late to put the passengers in a hotel and arrange for another flight. They had to spend 6 hours in the airport at night. Every one of the people on the airplane got in line and told the person working at the airline in very unpleasant language what they thought about having to be reassigned a seat to continue their flight or a new flight the next day. So Celia, she knew, well, there's no place to go. I'll just wait and be last. She walked up, and the first thing she did was she said, I know you've had a rough day. And at first, before you give me a seat, I would just like to apologize for the way my fellow travelers treated you. I'll take any seat you have. And he looked at her and he said, have I got a seat for you? 163 people got off the plane the next day in London, and Celia was upgraded to first class and slept peacefully all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, everyone that story, which is a true story, that Celia told to, they said, you should complain to the airline, you should sue the airline, you should let them know how you truly feel. But I thought, no, Celia's the hero, isn't she? For a little kindness, she upgraded her whole life from coach to first class, just by being kind. Think about stories, think about things that have happened. If you're writing about a friend, how did you meet them? So describe how you met them, what the day was like, or possibly the circumstances. What does that friend mean to you? So you're developing it. How have they helped you? How have you helped them? Can you describe a friend in one word? Oh, and I think about someone, they are very compassionate. I have another story where someone turned to me and said, Michael, what's that compassion thing all about? I don't get it. Those are two very different stories, but interesting to use if it makes sense. Also looking for what's unique. What is unique? Our friend from Holland, Rudy, he was visiting us and we went to Yosemite National Park. And we were looking at a display of photos of how bears had broken into cars and destroyed the cars. There was a Mercedes with its trunk popped open. There was a Saab with its window peeled down. There was another car, a Volvo, and it had the sunroof broken into. And Rudy's standing next to me, and he's looking at these pictures, and this is what bears do to cars in California. And I said, Rudy, you know what this means? And he goes, no, what? I said, bears hate foreign cars. And we laughed and laughed and laughed because it's a unique view about something that you wouldn't think would be the answer to the situation. Obviously, the answer was don't leave food in your car. Writing, especially in a short amount of time, is about trust. Trust yourself. Developing a speech is about trusting what you wrote. So it's important to be imaginative. Don't over edit the parts that are unique about us. Write what's unique about you. Be imaginative. You'll surprise yourself and delight the audience. If we could have another 2 minutes, Rovina, or another 3 minutes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We're at 3 minutes, Michael.
Okay, great. Some of the points in a presentation stand alone. Some of need support. So when you're writing, it's okay if you're only introducing a point and it's clear. Some other points might be a little more abstract. You might need to support them. That's fine. If anyone would like to continue writing during this next portion, please do so. If you have an idea you want to work out, you can just listen to me in the background and then follow along with what I'm doing. Remember that every idea connects to the next. Make a point, or support that point. That's the structure of every speech. One idea leads to the next. If you're telling a story, this is where I was, this is where I am, where the conflict I had, and this is where I'm going, where this is how it finished or concluded. So realizing every point connects to the next is important. Make sure and add in the details if it's appropriate. You don't need to add in too many details. One time I had a woman give a speech and she was looking to fill time. She said, well, I got on my bike and I went for a ride. It had been a long time since I had been on my bike. And I thought, wow, and she didn't know what to say and she was trying to stretch. And I would think like, well, what was it like when you got on your bike? What did it feel like when you the pedals? Did it remind you of your childhood? Who was with you? Where did you go? Did you feel the breeze? Was it cool? Did you pass by an open field where they were irrigating and the temperature dropped? All of the senses, think about the senses of what happened. Was it a new bicycle? Was it an old bicycle? Did you have problems with that bicycle? So you can think about the details if you feel like I need to add time or I want to fill this out. Think about the details. Be descriptive in what's happening. One of our fellow Toastmasters in my club said, Michael, imagine you're holding my hand and we're walking over a bridge. Describe to me what you see. What do you see? What do you feel? What are you thinking? Those are great points to add clarity to any speech. Writing is an exercise in trust. Tell stories as honestly as you can. That's vital. Now, another way to think about this is in a 3 to 5 minute speech, you're only speaking for about 1 minute, maybe on each topic or on each story. It's kind of like doing 3 little mini table topics in a session. This table topics I'm going to tell about, I always wanted to go camping in the woods. Second one, I had an opportunity to go camping with my friends, who was there, what we anticipated. The third one, how things ended up. So it's like 3 little mini table topics. Things that work against us when we're trying to write a speech very quickly is trying to craft the perfect sentence. Sometimes we think, oh, I'll just write this wonderful sentence. Well, it can take you 4 minutes to write that perfect sentence, and you're trying to be clever. Just write and be simple. Don't try to write the story so much, or write the story. Don't try to write sentences. Writing the story is important. Now, for our third writing exercise, we're going to focus on the opening and the conclusion. So if you look at what you wrote, think about the opening, maybe where you were, and then the conclusion. But right now, just the opening. If you get straight to the point in the opening, then you have a great clarity with the audience. Clarity is quality. How you begin is up to you. You could ask a question. A question involves the audience. You could make a statement. I was angry. Or have you ever been upset? Statement or a question. You could use a quote, maybe to communicate a philosophical idea. Could describe a setting or state a problem. So let's spend 1 minute on just thinking about the opening. One sentence possibly. Go ahead and give us 1 minute, Rovina. Okay, great. Thank you so much. That's about a minute. We're also going to spend about a minute on the conclusion. So a conclusion reflects the opening statement. You begin a story and you finish a story. I gave one speech on how compassion, kindness, and understanding affected my life. Just 3 little mini stories, one on compassion, one on kindness, one on understanding. So the opening was about, have you ever had conflict with someone? And then that was the theme throughout. And then my conclusion was, these are the 3 ways I've overcome conflict in my life. So the conclusion answers your opening. Possibly it answers a question. It shows how you've changed or what you've learned. It might inspire the audience to take action or make us feel like we want to become a better human being. So let's have another minute for time on the conclusion. Let's just think about the conclusion. Okay, great. It's about a minute. So think about if you would like to volunteer and give a speech, but I just want to speak for about 1 minute on delivery. When you're giving a speech in a short amount of time, or even if you've had a long time to prepare, open and close with confidence. If you open with confidence, the audience knows where you're going. If you close with confidence, they're with you. It adds energy to the presentation. Now, before you're introduced, you can review your opening line or think about the idea. You can also clear your mind. But there's one thing I'd like you to remember. You don't have to be perfect to be brilliant. You can give a brilliant presentation with just a few minutes of preparation. Do we have any volunteers? 1 or 2 volunteers that would like to give a speech at this time?
We have one. We have 2. All right, and let me, I'm gonna allow everybody to unmute themselves. But let's please still try to be respectful of those that are talking.
Hello. Hi.
Oh, yes, yes, sir. What do you want? Just the opening conclusion or a full speech?
Sorry.
Mr.
Should I go or is he?
We have, Arnie, we have
Sure.
someone who's volunteered and we're going to go with them first. We have
Okay.
put down in chat that they're going to be doing, they volunteered to do the speech. So after we're done, maybe we can check in with you.
All right. Sure. Sorry. Yeah. Great.
So
So what's the thing now?
first volunteer is Venu. Venu, do you want to go? Thank you.
Yes, this will be a 5-minute speech, correct?
Oh, really?
Okay. How many of you know a black hole is? How many of you know a gravitational pull is? Today, I am going to talk about lessons learned into a different type of hole, which is called a learning hole. What is this learning hole is all about? Let's dive right in. I'm going to explain 2 points, 2 important lessons I learned from this. My journey to this learning hole started about 2 years ago. And this learning hole is nothing but Toastmasters Club. One of my coworkers approached me 2 years ago. It was a casual conversation, or supposed to be a casual conversation. And I got dragged into this learning hole, so-called Toastmaster Club. And he floated this idea, hey, Venu, you are trying to improve yourself. Why don't you try this club, which we are starting here? So I signed up for it. Little that I know what's waiting for me down the line. So I was explained all the procedures, process, what's going on with the Toastmasters, what I need to do. So I was going to prepare for my first biggest task, which is the icebreaker. I had to literally prepare for about a month, not writing content, but just mentally preparing myself to go and stand in front of a people who I already know. They are not strangers. They are my colleagues sitting next to me. So I wrote this content. I went there. I stood there. As soon as I looked at the room, everybody is looking at me, eye to eye. That's when I knew how powerful is eye contact. So I gave the speech. It went well, satisfactory. Though I had a lot of help from my club members. I'm very thankful for them. But I completed the speech. One big learning from this is where my first learning comes in. After the speech, nothing happened. I didn't die. Nobody judged me. Nobody came and said, hey, Venu, you did worst. I mean, I never thought you will speak like this. No, nobody said that. It was good. So the first learning was have the courage to step out of your comfort zone. That's my first learning. I learned that day. From that day, I started practicing. And that's when my second speech was supposed to come. Now again, I pondered, did I take the right step to come into this club? Yeah, I did. Because I was made officer and I was made sure I helped others who were in my situation. That's when I realized the power of learning. That's when this learning hole started sucking me in like a gravitational pull. So my second speech comes by, and I prepared well enough, for the speech. And then I gave the speech. Guess what? I was over time. I gave more content. I over-prepared, but I delivered the speech. So here comes my second learning. Definitely, a failure is an incredible opportunity for learning. I did not complete in time, but I learned the importance of time management. I learned the importance of the flow of the speech. Unfortunately, Michael was not there at that time to help me out, but yes, my other members helped me as well. In summary, I had 2 points: courage and the failure. And these 2 points really learned me how to speak, how to deliver my speech without having a fear. And this is the learning hole which I am addicted to these days. I have a question for you guys now. Do you have the courage for failure? Back to you, Toastmaster.
Michael, do you want me to call on the second? Okay, so our second volunteer, thank you, Venu, that was really good. You timed at almost 6 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Very well done. Okay, and I think we had Tony who said, Tony, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so you volunteered, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. I would like to thank our first speaker of the evening for stepping up and sharing your story about how having courage helped you to take your journey. And it's a coincidence that my talk has a lot to do with how I was able to find courage and stop caring so much about what people thought. So our messages are very much aligned. And my story starts, I live in Salinas, California, and it was about a little over 5 years ago that I was on my way to a chemo treatment, and it was going to be my second to last. So at that time, I had already had all the, my hair fell out, and I did not want to go out without having a wig or some kind of a hat. But it was Indian summer in Salinas, so I was too hot. So I voted to be more comfortable rather than caring about how I looked. And so I decided, well, I'm going to a cancer clinic. I'm just going to book it as soon as I get out of the car and run so no one will see me. But I was very concerned about my appearance. And the way that the chemo goes is it's several hours long and they give you medication, so you become very drowsy. So I completely forgot that I wasn't, and I didn't look the way that I wanted to. And I just, as soon as my appointment was over, just out of habit, just sauntered out of the appointment room, and I saw someone that I knew, and he's a member of my community, and I've known him for years. He's actually a neighbor. And I was so happy to see him because I knew that he stopped coming out and socializing because he also had cancer. And I saw that he kind of averted his eyes, and I wanted to tell Papa John I was so happy to see him and that I didn't care, that he was just the same person to me. And so we started talking, and I'm passionate about food, and his son owns a restaurant locally that we waited for a long time for it to open, and I was able to finally experience that. And I started talking, and we both lost sense of time, and we just started enjoying each other's company and laughing. And the only reason the conversation ended is because he got called into his appointment. So I'm walking to my car casually and thinking I'm going to go and refresh myself with a drink because it's hot. I get into the car, I pull the visor down, and that's when I remember that I don't have any covering on my head, and there was no way I would ever go out that way. I'm too self-conscious. Yet I just had a conversation with a gentleman that I've known for years, and I thought, wow. And I just sat there and just kind of, the feeling that you get, oh my God, oh my God. And then I said, Tanya, it's over with. It's okay. And I kept thinking back to that afternoon, and I realized, I thought, well, he was such a gentleman. He just treated me like normal. And as the day turned into evening, I realized it was because I was comfortable. I forgot about it. And so I was just so happy to have his company that I forgot about myself. And I realized that that was why he was comfortable, is because I was comfortable. If I would have acted awkward and embarrassed, then it would have created an awkward situation. And so that is how I stumbled into how to draw on confidence, is just to be comfortable in your own skin. And I want to leave you with this thought tonight that you may not already be there. There may, all of us have We all care about what other people think. But you know what we all have in common? We've all overcome obstacles in our lives, and we're stronger for it. And during this pandemic, I don't think there's anyone who remains untouched. And you know what? You overcame those obstacles and you're stronger. And people benefit when you share your story. So even if you're still suffering from self-confidence and you still think about what other people think, you have overcome a problem. And by sharing it, just like our first speaker did with us tonight, we can all help each other through this, and we can all learn from each other. And we can all be happy that we're in this learning hole called Toastmasters. Thank you. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Wow, that was quite a story, Tanya. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering and sharing with us. And I loved how both of you talked about how empowered you felt with, you know. Michael, I'll leave it for you to give them feedback if you want, or.
Well, I think everyone saw what two wonderful presentations we had. I think there was a third one even coming up. So we can stay on if someone wants to give a third speech. But you see how powerful it is to simply understand the simplicity of a story and then go ahead and share that story. Both of the stories were very personal and they carried a lot of weight. They had a lot of meaning with us. So they very much touched the audience. Beautifully done, both of you. Thank you so much. Are there any questions, or Robina, you can lead the way?
Sure. If there is another volunteer, Arnie, did you have some questions you wanted to ask?
Either one, Ravina, either I will do a speech or ask questions to Mr. Michael.
What would you like to do? Would you like to, why don't you ask a couple of questions if you have? That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I do have. Mr. Michael, I could deliver a speech. How do you overcome a blank page? Or how do you get rid of your writer's block? That's one question. And talking about Hemingway's simplicity, it's not a matter of subject, verb, object. I think he spent more time looking for that simple word from general to specific. So writing a simple sentence or going into simple words are more difficult. It's more difficult than just freewheeling writing. And you remember his writing, his novel, Old Man in the Sea, had 15 interpretations. despite its simplicity of the language, simple scene, simple plot, and everything. Your response, sir.
Well, how do I overcome writer's block is I'll write what I know, and if the idea is fully developed, I'll go with that. And if I don't know what's next, I'll start on another project, or I'll use my imagination and ask myself, well, what would happen next? What's the most logical thing to do or to say? If I ever lose my way in a speech when I'm presenting, I quiet my mind, I pause for a moment, and I ask myself, what's the most important thing I want the audience to know? And when I do that, I always come through with the right thing to say and get back to the speech. Same thing with writer's block. If it's not going well, I ask myself, what's the most important thing I want the audience to know? Clear my mind, and then go ahead with that. I think as far as writing, use what's most natural to you. Again, you don't want to have to change your style to be more simplistic. I think the focus there is also on being honest. In your natural language, your natural word choice, use those words, but choose words that have the greatest clarity for the audience. And your third one, I forget.
Hemingway, simple
Hemingway.
words.
Yeah, 15 different interpretations. There's always a different interpretation. Every book is interpreted by the reader. What's interesting is if you read a novel and the author wasn't specific in describing the character, and then they make a movie out of the novel, people get upset. No. He had blonde hair. No, he had dark hair. No, he was tall. No, he was thin. Everybody sees them differently in their imagination. So if it's important, add the details. And interpretation, you could argue that forever.
Anyway, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
See you again.
We are at time right now, Michael. We're at 7 p.m. I do, of course, you are going to stay behind, but at this point, I do want to thank you for really showing us how easy it is to write a speech in 10 minutes. We all have the power to do so, should choose to do so, right? In the beginning, it might be difficult to do so, but then it just will happen, you know, as you exert your mind, it should happen. So thank you very much for doing that. And for those of you who joined us, if you enjoyed this workshop, you will be getting an evaluation. Can you please fill that out and send it in, because we will then send your feedback to Michael so that he can incorporate it for future workshops that he does. And if you've enjoyed this Toastmasters Leadership Institute workshop, our next one is next Thursday, February 11th, and it is on impromptu speaking, how to high stakes impromptu speaking. And it's
Oh, wow.
given by another distinguished Toastmaster, like Michael, who's distinguished Toastmaster, by Satish Shenoy. Same time, please register if you haven't already. And I'm expecting it to be another very good workshop. So thank you very much, Michael. And those of you who want to stay on, please feel free to do so. I'm sure Michael will graciously answer your questions. But we will stop the recording at this point. I know we have a question that's come in and we'll read it out, but thank you, everybody. Okay.
Thank you all.